Sherm Patterson, the program director of Lights On. And about two and a half years ago, microgrants, some board members came up with the concept of how can we help with police community relations. With the current climate that's been going on, we want to help. So in order to bridge that gap, they came up with the concept of Lights On. So often you have low-income people who are being stopped and for a traffic light, for a blown light, a headlight, tail light. So with that being said, they're making choices. Do I pay this, or do I pay my rent or food? And when they get that ticket, it builds and builds, and then at this time they can't afford this. So we came up with this concept of the voucher Lights On. The chief has it in his hands with the officers. When they're stopping that car, the anxiety is up between the driver, the anxiety is up between the officer. But once that officer comes back, he or she runs that plate, and they make a decision. Here's this voucher, and you should see how just everything comes down, and they're just really joyful. The conversation starts. We're bridging the gap, but at the same time, they're taking that voucher to a local service provider, which we have here in Rochester, and they're presenting this voucher, and they're getting a car fixed. And now they can go ahead and do other things that they need to take care of financially. This has been a wonderful program throughout the Twin Cities. We started out initially back in April 2017 with 20 police departments. We've doubled that since, and we're just being inundated with other departments asking about how can we get on board. And the great thing about this, it's a resource that we are providing. So often police departments, people are coming asking them, well, can you give us this and this and this? But we came to them with this resource that's coming as a tool for their tool belt that we're providing light bulbs. The donations are coming in. We are not even actively fundraising. People are loving this and just donating money to the Lights On project. So in saying that, I'm going to turn this over to our CEO, Mike McCloskey, and if you have any questions later, I can answer.
So let me quickly say, we come from the organization called Microgrants. So our primary mission in Microgrants is we partner with 54 local service organizations, and we give out grants, not loans, to people coming out of poverty that gets them to the next economic level. So it might be helping them get a car because they get a job offer, but it's not on the bus line. It could be buying tools because they just came out of a carpentry program and they get a job offer and they need the tools. That's who Microgrants is. But back in 2017, the board was saying, how can we help the community and the police? And we already were connected to police, we were already connected to auto repair places, and we already connected to low-income drivers. And so the idea came, what if we just fix the bulb? So as Sherm said, we provide this to the police departments, and the police departments are contacting us. So just like Sherm says, unlike most people saying, police, I need you to do this, I want you to fix this, we're saying, no, here it is, you use it if you want. So what's interesting is the police departments are calling us. And the word got out because of a Google search by a Washington Post columnist last summer in July. And so we were featured in the Washington Post in a large article. And then NBC News followed them and did a feature story on us. So now we're getting calls from all over the country. And what's would come with that is some funding to be able to pay for us to expand our program. That's why since January, we've doubled it. We've got 17 new police departments in the metropolitan area. That's why we're able to reach out to Rochester, because we can afford to pay for the bulbs now, beyond our normal circle. And now we're on a 3-year national expansion, and we want to do Minnesota right the first year, and then we'll reach out. We've already been contacted by 6 other major metropolitan areas, including Newark, Nashville, Kansas City, whatever. We've already been copied in 3 other cities, including Wichita, Charleston, South Carolina, and Iowa City. And in the end, it's not about us. It's about what can we do to have a positive impact in the community.
And also in saying that, this is a win-win for everybody. This is a resource. It's measured. It can be measured. It's outcome oriented, and it's also deliverable. And Rochester has been great. Paul has been great. Jim has been great, and we're excited. And they are the first in Greater Minnesota to have Lights On.
Make sure we get that in.
We want to give that thumbs up to them.
So let me give you a better opening here. So the Rochester Police Department is implementing a new program called the Lights On campaign in partnership with Microgrants and Rochester Motors here in the city of Rochester. The program involves an opportunity for law enforcement to give something back to the motoring public. Oftentimes officers pull people over for traffic violations and equipment violations. violations, and we have limited resources and tools for the officers, or options for the officers. What this does is this allows our officers to issue a coupon to help the motoring public get their minor equipment fixed in an efficient manner, in a free manner, rather than having them leave with a citation. And what we're trying to accomplish with this is citations can oftentimes lead to that downward spiral for people, which can lead to multiple other contacts. What we're trying to do is alleviate and eliminate that downward spiral for the motoring public.
Let me chime in two things. One is the spiral down. There was a woman originally from Rochester that just testified to the state legislature. Her name is Leah Jackson. And it's a long story, but she started with a traffic violation. She got stuck in a stoplight, is what it was, $135. And she was working, this is a working person, and within 4 years she owed $16,000. And it kept, I can go through all the math, but whatever. That's the example of what happens from a traffic ticket. Nobody, the officer, or I'm sure the legislature, never envisioned a traffic ticket causing such a financial burden for this person. A person who was paying it off for 4 years, but still couldn't get out of debt. The other thing I want to make sure that we recognize Rochester Motor Cars. So Mike Inke, the general manager, who's out of town, who couldn't be here today, but we had no relationship. Paul reached out to him, heard he was a good guy, they were committed to the community, and they said, we're in. So that includes Rochester Ford, Rochester Mazda, Rochester Toyota, along with the Rochester Quick Lane. And so you can take this voucher, which it just says, go to the website, and you'll see it's also in Somali and Spanish. Go to the website, type in your zip code, and you can find out where to get the light bulb fixed. Or you can talk to the officer and say, hey, who's in this area, whatever, which obviously is those of Rochester Motor Car. We're not limited to that. We're expanding beyond Rochester as well, so there's probably going to be many more. I'm sure the word will get out to the local other communities that will want to be participating. What's interesting is it's the local guys that really want to step up. We met with another city yesterday, pulled in a couple other shop owners in their town. How can we help our community? And this is a great example of your ability, or people's ability to give back.
Yeah, it's a great example, really highlighting that public-private partnership, and it's reflective of the community that we serve. It's reflective of a community of compassion, willing to come together in a creative initiative and problem solving for the greater good. So we're very proud to be on the front end of this initiative, and we couldn't do it without our partners. So again, I want to thank Microgrants as well as Rochester Motor Cars.
Did this stem from the Philando Castille case in part, or?
Well, you know, everyone knows that what happened with the Philando Castille case, and of course he had a tail light blown. Just think about it. If this would have been in place, it would just probably taken everything down. However, we that was looked at the same time. But there are other incidents also, throughout the country, throughout Minnesota, just in Minneapolis, where people are being stopped, and just a plain Joe or Sally. So my wife was stopped. As a matter of fact, my wife was stopped, and she had a blown headlight in the winter. So in saying that, the officer stopped her and said, it's snowing, and it looks like you have one headlight, and that's dangerous. But he gave her a voucher. I told her, I said, you couldn't take that's a conflict of interest. But the great thing about it that was said, she said her anxiety went down when he came back with a voucher, and they had a conversation, and that conversation started that relationship. And that's what we're looking at, the relationship, building better police community relationship, but also serving those who are in need.
And Chief Franklin, that kind of fits in since you joined on with the Rochester Department, that you've really pushed as the community and police relationship as well. It kind of fits right in there.
Yeah, absolutely. As exhibited in our Safe City Nights initiative, it's about coming together, police and community, and having that brave conversation, building those relationships, and bridging the gaps.
Who qualifies for this program?
Anybody.
Well, it's
Anybody at the
discretion,
officers
right?
use their discretion to issue the voucher.
You mean from an agency perspective? You
Yeah,
mean from
so from an agency perspective, when you pull someone over, is the headlight out the only thing that has to be what they're doing wrong, or?
We'll leave that up to the officer's discretion to issue these. And officers will, I'm sure, use good discretion when issuing them. A lot of times there are other issues going on when people stop, or officers stop people for headlights, but if that's the only the only reason or the only thing that's the officers stopping them for, then maybe this can be issued. But it'll be up to the officer's discretion.
So if they're stopped for a headlight and they're drunk and they go to jail, probably not going to
They're
get
probably
the
not
voucher.
going to get one.
I think it's important to note that we're not telling the police how to do anything.
Exactly.
It's their job to do their job. We're just giving, like Sherm said, one more tool that they can use. And what's different about it, it's positive. So often their job is about conveying negative news in some way. And there's not a criticism, it's just they're finding all the problems in society. They also, the individual officer doesn't get the opportunity to be the conveyor of positive news. I mean, maybe they got to deliver a baby sometime, or, you know, it's pretty rare. So talking to officers who've been doing this and the opportunity they have to, they come back to their squad like Sherm talked about, they'll run the usual information, everything looks fine, it's just a tail light. And then that officer gets to be, you hear officers say, the surprise on the people's face and say, hey, this one's on me. And how, like Sherm said, all of a sudden there's a dialogue, a relationship built, a relationship between the individual officer and the resident, but also the community, the police department as a whole. Now the police department looks like, hey, we're in this together. How can we help you? Versus how can we ticket you, or how can we, you know, cause a problem in your life, whatever.
And
so
even,
it's fantastic.
Right, even the service provider, like Rochester Ford, when they go to the service provider, they're very ecstatic, and we're getting feedback from our surveys about how pleased they are about a bulb being fixed. You'd be surprised. Instead of coming in and get a 30-point check, but I got my bulb fixed for free, and they're excited about that. And we've got some really good feedback on that.
There was a story just the other day, I won't get too far, that one of the service providers told us that a guy pulled in with this big Mercedes. And they're thinking, really? The officer gave him a voucher? And the guy pulls in, and the service provider, the auto guy, is thinking in his head, does this guy really need his bulb paid for? And the guy says, you know what? I don't want you to pay for my bulb. I just want to see who you are that's willing to commit to the community on this program. He says, I'm paying for my bulb. But he said, I want to see. So there's been a really positive feedback to the auto guys about who's willing to step up and participate in the program. And they've talked about the repeat customers because of it. Even though they're not selling anything, they're just doing the bulb when they come the first time.
Can you talk a little bit more about the funding for this? So is it all donation based, and then dealers or people that work in the auto industry are being reimbursed? How is it? How does
Yes,
that
I
work?
can talk a little bit. We cover their costs.
Okay.
And it's also important to note that 10% of them are not the bulb. It's the wiring, it's the harness, it's something different. And so we repair 99% of them. There's going to be a few exceptions if you've been rear-ended and you've totaled the car where we won't be able to fix the bulb. But we do cover up to several $100s on an individual basis that we get clearance to make sure it looks legit. But we want this to work for everybody, so our funds cover some of that. The average bulb costs about $43 with all involved. We don't want the auto guys to lose money on it necessarily, but so we cover the cost. The funding, it's been crowdsourced mostly up until this point, and that's worked just fine. We're getting surprise donations when people hear about the program. They just kind of appear. People we've never heard of. But I don't want that to make it sound like we're rolling in cash, because as we're rolling out farther and farther beyond the Twin Cities, and with more and more police departments, we're giving out more and more bulbs. So people have just been going to the website. We have not actively fundraised almost at all, and yet people hear about the idea, think it's such a great idea, and they're going to our website and making donations, or checks will come in the mail. So we are totally open, and as we grow, and we'd like to cover the whole state by the end of the year, there's definitely going to be a need for more funds as we give out more bulbs. Up to this point, we've given out somewhere between 800 or 900 free bulbs.
Is there a cap on what one agency can do in terms of
No.
number of vouchers?
No.
You think about covering mufflers?
Need a break fix.
People tend to think of headlights as a night thing, but more and more, even us in our broadcasting are reminding people to have their headlights on when the weather's lousy during the day.
Oh, definitely.
Any comments on that when it comes
It's
to
a
this
legal
program?
requirement when it's raining or snowing that you have to have your headlights on.
Yeah, so
For reduced visibility, headlights on.
Totally. Luckily, a lot of cars will allow it. You put the auto.
Yeah,
It
I don't even
pops
think
on.
about it anymore. It's
Yeah.
auto on.
Yeah, it's great.
So if somebody wants to look into the program, what's the website?
It's You can go to the microgrants website and it'll link into it, or you can go to Lights On. I gotta remember we just put a new lightsonus.org.
There you go.
Yep.
This is for the PD. Do you guys foresee this program changing how you patrol the streets? I mean, do you expect to be pulling more people over in an effort to help them? Or
I look at this as another tool for the officers, another option. Obviously, officer discretion is still going to play a role in this, and it's an opportunity for the officers again to kind of engage the motoring public in a higher level, kind of building that relationship, leaving them on a positive note. It's kind of a pay it forward, pay it back to the community program, which is what I love about it.